Welcome back to our second podcast. The next one is quite controversial.
Oh, is it controversial?
But you know, is white right?
You even started getting it out. Is that
I don't want to get cancelled. So.
But what, in what context?
Yeah.
What context?
Okay, we have to get
Set
some
up the frame.
context.
Explain it.
So,
White paint.
White shoes?
Yeah, white shoes.
I like
The lights are quite bright too.
I like my white my white trainers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
White on whites.
Yeah, man.
So why are so many black guys going out with white girls?
Silence.
We need to pour some liquor first.
So this is the bit where I can play the mixed race card. Yeah.
Drink to that.
Play the mixed race card.
Yes, absolutely. Kick off.
Kick off.
Kick off.
Why do so many? So in my opinion, right? So
Yeah, go on.
bro, okay,
Said the term.
straight up, right? So if you're asking, are we asking from what I think in my time and how it was
Asking
then?
you.
Or-
Asking you.
Okay.
Man's got nice disclaimers.
Every game is got touchy. Why are you asking me? You're asking my cousin.
So me personally, straight up, I've never been in a relationship with a black woman, right?
Alright.
So
Why?
why? So that's what I'm coming to. So
Yeah.
if I go back to these joking, I don't even know if I can say this.
Man's getting cancelled in the morning.
So the first black girl to ever show me any kind of attention,
Yeah.
this is no word of a lie, did it on the back of presenting me with a baseball bat and saying, I like you. Now that might have been a fundamental of going to school in Tottenham, I don't know.
That might be a
Nothing
Tottenham
against
ritual.
But you know, that was the first experience, and that
Right.
kind of, I'm not gonna lie, at the age of 16,
That's set tone, dude.
That was enough,
set a
isn't it?
little bit of a tone. But then, sort of like in my 20s, or when I started dating more prominently,
Yeah,
I don't know. I think, I mean, it's not that I don't vibe with black girls or nothing like that.
yeah.
I can't say I've had any sort of, apart from baseball bat,
Bad
any sort of
experiences.
really bad experiences. And I have had interconnections with black girls. I have had experiences with black girls.
Interconnections.
What interconnection?
Yeah,
That's a
that's
nice
good.
word.
That's something that.
What does that mean?
What does that mean, bro?
Explain.
Correct.
I have had sexual relations with that woman. You know, so I have done that. But I think for whatever reason, a black woman hasn't looked at me and said, it's going to be anything more than that.
Okay.
And me, myself, those women,
Yeah,
one of them actually, I have to be honest, one of them I probably could have seen like maybe something more with, and I don't. But that was a whole different thing. They were in a situation, I was in a situation. So it wasn't a clear run. The only one that I had a clear run at
Gave you a baseball bat.
just told me, literally called me like a caramel chocolate for the night, and that was it. That was it. So, but if I look at it as I'm going to say as an outsider, because I'm mixed race, and I think our dynamics probably with black women is different.
yeah.
I think it'd be ignorant of me to say that it's the same, and I don't mean that in a disrespectful way.
Interesting. No, it's interesting that you touched on that. Yeah, expand on that though.
So,
I want to know,
I-
did you keep the bat?
no, I ran, bro. I ran. You know, I ran straight. I was like in the hallway with a girl bigger than me, threatening me with that, telling me she liked me. But I think what I observe, black men, black women,
Yeah,
I feel that from my observations, usually the black man has to make some sort of what's the word? What's the right word I'm thinking of?
You come up with this word.
They have to
I wouldn't
compromise.
put it in my
Compromise.
I don't get cancelled.
They have to. The black men generally have to make a compromise, and it usually comes from my observation. Now, observation, not
Observation.
factual.
Yeah, observation. You're allowed to observe.
It comes from usually having to take away something of what could be perceived as strength or dominance in that relationship. That's what I see.
Bro, that's a deep observation, my guy. That's a deep observation. And you observed well. You observed well. Respect
If I can say that.
I'm actually cancelled. I might not be back for episode 3.
Brethren, that's interesting you saying that. But anyway, carry on.
I think as a mixed race guy, I would say, again, observation.
Mm-hmm.
In my group of friends that I grew up with, probably was seen more by black women than my black friends, male friends, if I'm honest.
What, you had more chance of black things?
I think so.
Okay.
And I think that came from a place of, because I wasn't fully black, if
Right.
I'm honest.
Right.
Because I think there's and this is what I observed from I grew up in North London.
So you were Drake before Drake.
I think there's substance what you're saying. I think there was a swing back in the day where there was like light skin was the thing, and then boom,
A
it was like
mixed race guy,
Darkings, innit?
a mixed race guy in the early 2000s. If they had a 2 and a 1, we were Marcus Houston and we were clubbing.
yeah.
No, come on, don't.
But that's
mainstream.
That's the culture. Right? That was at the time.
Yeah.
It would be interesting to know, because you said you're mixed race. Is it your father's black or your mother's black?
My mum.
Okay.
And that's where I was going to come to another thing. So the black, I'm gonna have to be careful. The black girls that I grew up with,
Yeah.
I have to say mainly in school, I'm not sure if their fathers were around. And I think that is
That's
another
big.
thing.
That's the point I want to check. That's
I
big.
think that was another reason why maybe in my time.
Yeah. Touchy. Yeah, go on. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I would draw the conclusion that maybe if you're missing
You lot.
I'm not treading carefully. Like, it's just gonna go first. We got
I am human resources. Come on.
I'm hearing that.
How can I say this? This is diplomatically.
This is so peaceful.
You know in the movies where they're on the ice and you hear the ice cracking?
Bro, I'm in the water already, man. Under the ice, like crapping out.
But bro, talk your truth, man. Anyway,
So-
carry on, my guy.
I think that if something perceived is missing and you've done without it,
Yeah.
maybe as a young black woman.
Mm.
Now that's not for everyone, obviously, but it's
Yeah.
just the scenes that
You're
I
going to
saw.
talk about your exactly your.
So I think that potentially you've got that bit of it was missing, and then I have to question what was the mother's then
What's the role?
influence.
Yeah. What's the
Yeah.
role of the mother?
What did they say about the situation? Because we've all seen the traditional thing of, and it doesn't have to be black, white, Asian, or anything.
Yeah.
Any woman will say
I think
the father ain't shit.
Exactly.
If
I
they're
think
not
it comes down to a male and female thing.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think
That
women
is
are
a male
far
and female
quicker
thing.
to switch onto that main ain't shit line rather than a man will probably hold and be like, you know what?
But also though, but let's just also protect the man then, because some of the women push the men out. Some of the men don't want it. Some of the men don't actually want to leave. Some of the women push them out. But what I want to know, Pasto, is what is your preference?
My preference of
Is your preference?
What is your preference? Is your preference the sweet vanilla or the luxurious chocolate deluxe?
so. I am with someone who would fit into the latter,
Sweet chocolate deluxe.
but I can't say this without getting cancelled at home. I'm getting cancelled here, bro. You're not taking this. So I can't lie to you, yeah. I can't lie to you, and it's okay because she won't care. I picked her because this is just so many wrong levels. To me, she has the physique of a black woman.
Okay. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
without going into further details,
Respectfully.
but if you ask, never mind. But like, in terms of preference or whatever, I didn't set out for that. I didn't set out for anything.
That's interesting.
My first girlfriend was an Italian,
Okay.
and then I dated a Greek
Oh,
girl,
yes.
but I've never dated a English-born English girl.
An English rose.
Never.
You never had an English rose?
An English rose? Never.
No. I've
That's interesting.
had interactions.
Yeah.
Interactions.
You'd have to interact.
I'm not seeing that HR term.
I'm getting sacked on Monday. Tuesday, I get an extra day.
Exactly.
But no, I don't Actually, you know what? No, I'm not gonna lie. Do you know what? If I'm allowed to do it now, preference Latinos all day, every day. That's my preference.
Yeah, okay, all right.
Say it
But-
with your chest.
So because they're a mix of black and white.
I just like the language that they speak, the body shapes.
Yeah.
The hair.
But they are a mix of African and European heritage, aren't they? So you just like yourself, you like the mixture. Yeah.
But it's
nothing wrong with that.
so it's interesting because you said your mother's black, correct? And you've had that, the baseball bat
Situation.
experience, which set the trend. But then ultimately you have partnered with a black woman.
No, she's Asian.
She's Asian.
Yeah.
Okay.
She just. She's quite dark. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Jesus Christ. I can't help.
She's a dark skinned, melanated Asian woman.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Beautiful. She sounds delightful.
Yeah. So, I guess my mum never really said anything. My dad left when I was very young.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't meet him until I was like 13, 15.
Mm-hmm.
There was none of that. But I did see in the girls that I was around influence there.
Yeah.
So that's why I say the comment of, would I have been more noticed or attractive or whatever, not attractive visually, but I mean like as an option, than a black male, because what was the discussions at home, what was the tone that was set, etc., etc. And I never really saw them go for white guys.
Yeah.
It was only us, the mixed race guys or the Latino guys, because there was quite a lot of Latino in the sport and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what makes me draw that conclusion.
But do you think though, and this is deep, because us black men, of the sort of darker melanated, the more sort of Afrocentric looking black men, we can be fetishized by women of different colours, including white women. And you think that black girls who probably don't want to admit it to themselves also want to cross the line and also want to experience something other than a black guy or a man of Afrocentric looks, and decides to, you know what, I'm gonna go and try something slightly different where I can still be accepted amongst my peers, because black women judge each other a lot, and by them going with a mixed race person, he's mixed, as in he's racially ambiguous, he doesn't look like the average black person.
Vin Diesel.
But I can avoid being called a sellout.
Yeah.
Because
if you're
he's
mixed
not
race,
white.
you're black.
Yeah.
In the right term, you're black.
Because in some women's mind, a mixed race guy is a black guy.
He's a black guy, yeah.
It's I'm not saying
This is an interesting conversation we had in the car.
Yeah.
So, when I've done something wrong in a relationship, and I'll be honest, I'm hands up, I've been told I'm black.
That's
Literally, you're a black guy.
That's very true.
But when I'm
Finessing.
I
Yeah.
like that. I use that. I'm mixed race,
Yeah.
Right.
or I'm not even anything. There's no reference.
There's
point.
no
That's
reference.
really
Yeah.
interesting.
But that's not from black
So
people.
you're
That's from
deviant when you
anything.
do something wrong, you're
Yeah.
black.
I'm black.
Yeah, okay.
Because when you're mixed race, I mean, my personal experience, 1 minute you're black. That can be in any situation,
any given
not
situation.
just that, but predominantly in that point,
Right.
you're a black man.
Alright, let me give you a point. So I had an encounter with a
Caucasian lady.
Caucasian lady.
I think it's the word.
You're saying about this?
Diplomatic, I know.
I said Latino straight.
No, back in the day, and
And they
like
counter
as soon as like
the entanglement.
as soon
That situation.
anyway,
Yeah.
and as soon as like I did something wrong, pardon my French, I'm a black bastard.
Is it?
Yeah,
Really?
She calls
She
you black
called you
bastard.
black bastard.
Bastard.
Yeah.
Being of a different quantity of melanin, she used the term
Black
bastard.
As a prefix.
Yeah.
She
Flipping
couldn't just
hell.
call you a bastard.
Yeah.
Black.
Wow.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
so-
Without sounding like a prick, was there an emphasis on any of the words?
Black.
That's what I was.
Nah, that's a lot. That's a lot.
So
That's the BB without the BBC, isn't it?
same, bro.
That's really interesting because, but in your experience though, relationship wise, T,
Yeah.
do you have more relationship success with women of a Caucasian extraction or African extraction? Honestly speaking,
just be real.
Just
I'll be real with you from my experience.
So
right?
from the Caucasus Mountains
Yeah.
or the African plains?
Yeah.
I would say it's more like
no judgments, man.
no judgments at all. I would say because I've got four older sisters, right? And they're watching this, so sorry. All my sisters are different complexions and stuff like that. And so it's like I don't know, certain black girls would remind me of my sister, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
That sounds. I'm not trying to sound like a. You get what I'm trying to say? It's
Yeah.
like,
Are you trying to say that you? I need to understand the psychology of what you're trying to say, my guy.
Yeah.
Without trying to, you need to be more clear. So when you say something black girls will remind you of your sister, are you saying that you don't want to engage in anything incestuous, or are you saying that you don't want to engage with them because they remind their character, certain aspects of your sister's character you probably did not like and you didn't want to?
No, I won't go that far. It's not like that. It's more like.
So explain it.
It's more like I see this guy that looked a bit like my sister, and then someone pointed it out to me, and then I just went off her.
I agree.
That's
long.
It's like I'm not saying my sister's name, but I'm just one of them ones, and so
you don't want to be referred to as an incestuous guy. Yeah. Okay.
And then also when I was younger, my sisters always used to say, "You're gonna end up with a white girl. You're gonna end up."
I've got some stories for you on that one. That's a big thing.
That is a very interesting observation. Okay, because that's what I need to try.
Yeah.
And I remember when I was at uni, right?
I have a follow-up question after.
It's very
Go on.
right. So I was at uni,
Yeah.
and the school that I went to was a very mixed school.
Yeah.
Okay, so very familiar with white, Asian, blah 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 blah. And I went to university. I was up in Manchester, and there's a number of people there that weren't as familiar with a mixed environment.
Yeah.
And one thing that I always remember, which was we were talking about the future and and what we're going to be doing, who's going to get married first, and then it was and then so there was a group of black women. And they were like,
They say the C word.
They said, so we just gonna marry a white woman. and look, my thing is I've got no problem. I'm open to the personality of the person. But what was it? I never really got the answer to this. But what was it about me that said, right, he's gonna marry someone out of his race. He's gonna marry someone.
Yeah.
Why do you think they said that to you? And I'm asking you both. You T. Let me ask you first. Why did your sisters come to a conclusion? Because growing up in the same Afro-Caribbean household, in the same neighborhood, why is it that they automatically picked themselves to marry a black man, but they picked you to marry a white woman?
Can I? Sorry, I don't want to be. Can I jump in just to ask one question? And the reason why is because based on our pre-chat that we had.
Yeah.
And I wanna get his answer before he answers your one, if that makes sense. Right. So Terry, you said on the pre-chat, 3 of us here, you could see marrying a white woman.
Yeah.
Why did you say that? And then that leads on to.
But statistics also don't lie.
You gotta be a real my guy. We love you same way.
Yeah. I just. Cause I know you guys. I'm not even trying to jump out.
It's an interesting thing because his question's right.
I know your preferences, and that's what I would more see you kind of marrying, if that makes sense. I'm not trying to escape the question. But
No, I thought it would be interesting because when you answer the next question, I just wanted to understand the psychology why you'd say that.
Yeah. Why? Yeah.
Sorry.
Why would they think that? Why would they think that? I guess it's a number of things. There could be a number of things. Maybe it's they kind of don't see me as even though I'm a black man, they don't see me as black.
Why don't they see
as
black?
As another.
That's the big thing.
That's because let's
group of black.
Explain
guys,
that.
right?
So what does black mean?
Okay. I'm trying to explain. I'm not that I believe this, but this is something that they might see. So they might think, okay, they listen to how I talk.
Yeah.
They listen to maybe look and read my mannerisms. They look at my references. They might look at my friend group. Right, there's a number of. I think it's just a number of facts. They might look into how I reason on particular things. Right, so maybe I don't instantly go straight to the European aggressor archetype or stereotype. Maybe I'm more reasonable with how I see it, or more balanced with how I see the world. All of these things, I think, begin to. I think probably. And maybe a topic for another day, another podcast is you said that word, sellout, which is something that's quite unique to the black experience. I don't really hear others, being kind of hung on the cross of sellout in the same way that we are as black people.
But I'd like to touch on something as well, which is why I think I came to this conclusion, and possibly you as well, Terry. It's that based on your current professions, some would argue that you are now part of the middle class, whether it's lower middle class, upper middle class. We won't divulge our.
What?
I said. Let me finish my point. We won't divulge our annual salaries, but we let the audience deduce it for themselves. But what I'm trying to make here is that there is a correlation between black men who tend to ascend, who tend to do really, really well. And who tend to partner with women, quite often are not necessarily women of the same extraction as themselves. So sometimes you'll find that some black women can actually see the trajectory of your potential life and the course of the life that you're taking. And then you are likely to ascend into this middle class and potentially even upper class. You're less likely to marry a black woman. So they think. Because of the observations that they've made.
But it's facts, it's based in statistics as well. They've got some statistics here that also...
Share with us, Dr. Wayne.
That also... Because I'm a stats man, I come prepared.
Yeah.
So, the evidence says that and this is, the thing about this evidence is it talks about black as a whole, and then it talks about gender gaps.
Yeah.
So the evidence says, basically, that so let's go on the first point. So the first bit of evidence says that since the 1980s to 2015, a black man has gone from marrying, or not a black man, so black as a race has gone from marrying out of their race from 5% to 18%. That's between 1980s to 2015. And then when we look at the white population, they have gone from 4% to marrying outside to 11%.
Okay.
So when we look at the sex difference, black men are twice as likely to marry out of a different race than black women are.
Yeah.
That's what the evidence says at the moment. And now on to what you guys were just touching on, this is the part that really hit me, is as black men gain more, and I'm going to use it, the word qualification, so they go from either being school educated, college educated, bachelor educated, the likelihood that they are going to marry outside their race increases.
Right. Okay.
So that's what the evidence says.
So that's what the evidence says, but what the evidence doesn't show is the why, right?
Yeah.
And then there's that. I think that is the kicker, because this is about, there's the data, there's what observable truth, okay? There's no way of getting in and around it. And I think that there is a mythos of self-hatred. That's something that often people talk about, a reason he hates himself, that's why he wants to get with a woman that's outside of his race, or with a white woman, or whatever. But actually, I think that's a narrative that's spread by a particular group, I don't think that's the reality. I think the reality is the more qualified, the more successful, the more dominant you become. Okay, and that means that whoever you partner with is going to have to be okay with you being the leader.
The leader,
right?
yes.
With you making the calls.
Yeah.
Okay, and then so the question is, with this current generation, is that compatible with the expectations that, say, our female counterpart within our own race has?
Yeah.
That's a very politically correct
Way
way
to
to
put
say it. I can feel and hear the ice.
Come join me.
I saw that to you, so I'm like, but my point is, with that, there is, whether you like it or not, if you go down that path of success, other groups, whether we like it or not, value.
It's an open marketplace.
Exactly. Value those characteristics, value what's being offered.
Indeed.
But also, there is an expectation that I think is within our community, especially within our women, for us to be these supermen. Right? And again, this goes back to what we were saying before. There's only a handful of men that are select like that. Okay? There's only a handful of male souls that traverse the earth that are like the Doctor. Okay? That have, do you know what I mean? But have the education, the physique, charisma. Look, guys, if they get one of those things, okay? But just before you chime in, I think my point is that whether we like it or not, other communities, you don't have to be this super God man, right? And that isn't to say they don't have standards, but there is an element of, character and means and provision that goes further, and that is ultimately, if you like it or not, more attractive. And there is, I was recently in a part of Latin America, and I saw, I was having
Latin America's lit, it'll make you reassess your whole life.
Listen,
telling you,
right?
Been there a few times and I better get myself back to the UK. But I do some stuff.
I was having a coffee, and there was a guy who came in. He was with his girlfriend, and his girlfriend was very, very cute, very attractive woman. But I couldn't help this guy. He had a limp. Right? It's clearly he had one leg shorter than the other. Right? Had a limp. And I just thought to myself, is that what's in our community?
He's done. It's finished. Over
no way. Look, he's a nice guy. But I'm just, there's a expectation and a pressure to be excel in every area.
So you're saying that as a community we're more unrealistic with what they're looking for in a man.
Expectation.
Do you know what it is? Sorry to cut you. I think it's a double-edged sword. I think you were touching on is that I think the expectations are slightly unrealistic, and I think also I'm always the person that, they say if you point a finger, your thumb points back at you. So if you have those expectations, what are you bringing to the table? And I think there are times where there's these huge expectations, but people are gonna hate me for this, but you've got like 4 kids, 4 different baby daddies. You're not doing the stuff that a man would look at and say, that's the woman I want to be with. And then when you're in that situation and the man is trying to say, right, here's my goals, here's my aspirations, bear with me, I'm going to lead. You're like, no, you're not fucking leading. I'm not. Who do you think you are telling me what to do? I'll do the finger click and the neck thing if I could do, but I can't.
There's a point I'd like to bring as well to the table in terms of that what I find interesting in interracial relationships that I've observed is that there's a racial comfort mostly with the white women that I observed. Contrary to popular beliefs, a lot of white women remain culturally within their culture.
Yeah.
They don't.
Lord.
They don't always try to
Yeah.
to take on
Yeah.
this
Some of
Afrocentric
those roles,
culture.
yeah.
So that we are often portrayed. I know many women who are in interracial relationships. That are remain traditionally English in their demeanor, English in the way that they comport themselves and the way that they carry their relationship. Whereas it's not always the same. It can always not be considered the same for the black men involved in those relationships, where there is a certain degree of discomfort within their own culture and within their own even physical appearance.
Yeah.
Now, I'll give you an example. I've never had the interconnections that Pascal talks about with the white women, but I find white women absolutely beautiful. I genuinely do. I think they're absolutely gorgeous. Many of them I've fancied my whole life. But I think for me, it's more psychological and it's more experiential. And I'll tell you why. When I grew up in France, and when I grew up in France, my first case was with a young girl called Isabelle, beautiful girl. She was a beautiful white girl, brunette, blue eyes, stunning girl, big blue eyes. I remember very well.
Yeah, when you said big, I was like, oh, we might have to get the censor down.
She was a stunner. When I was 5 years old, I fancied this Romany gypsy girl. Her name was Angelina. Again, a brunette, beautiful girl. But at some point during my childhood, I was reminded of how black I was, and I was reminded of how African I was. And so I grew up with that, and I didn't realize, I didn't know whether I was attractive to white women, to the point where I didn't know whether their attraction to me was based on a fetish. Because I've always been a minority for the majority of my childhood. It's only until I came to England that I saw a bit more sort of diversity, because I grew up in a rural part of France. So I internalized this for a very long time. So it's only when I came to England, my first sexual encounter was actually with a black girl, and but she was of a lighter skin tone than I am. So I was still carrying this sort of internalized, I guess, racism maybe, or this discomfort about who I was, and I was coming in contact with so many black people, having been alienated from that as a kid.
Yeah.
But also my first relationship and my first sexual encounter was with a black woman that was very light skinned, and that would basically, let's just say, she would be the house nigger in the master's house, and I would be in the field. And she was distinctively lighter skinned than I was. And up until that point, I've never really thought that it's time for me to engage in a long-term relationship with a white woman. Unfortunately, in my childhood, that's kind of had this, almost hindered, if you like, me trying to even engage with a white woman in the same way. Notwithstanding the fact that I find all women attractive, including white girls. So for me, it's not a problem, but to have a relationship with a white woman, especially now that I'm more comfortable with who I am and I know who I am. I would champion anybody to decide who the hell they want to go with, including white women if that's what you want.
Yeah.
But one thing I have seen, because I've got members of my family who are into interracial relationships, who had long-lasting relationships, is I found from my observation that the white female was far more attentive, far more feminine, and
That's a good point.
and which made my uncles and cousins, I find them a bit more. I found their relationships appeared to be a bit more stable. It appeared to be a bit more long lasting. So I thought to myself, there must be something in their relationship that is worthwhile. Why my uncles and cousins have decided to pursue this long endeavor with them.
Yeah.
Whereas, same observation with black couples and black families. I'm not saying that they're not perfect. Some have been fantastic and exemplary, but I've also seen a lot of dysfunction as well. And the women primarily wanting to almost have an equal footing in a relationship, or even sometimes dominate the relationship.
Yeah.
And that's the bit that
So going back to the question and the experiences that we've all had different types of experiences with people, women from our own race and white women and others, there is that question as to why, especially when a black man becomes more successful, why there is that linking to other races, especially white women. Is there surely there's a question of is there more effort that's coming from one group over another? Because the reason why I say that is through personal experience. Is there a willingness to be more overt with the desire to be with a black man from one group than the other? Am I, from what I'm saying, very delicately, is there a pride issue involved here? Why distancing? Why are you moving?
I'm not distancing.
I'm going to take some of the comments that we made.
Do you know, to that point you're saying, I have a very simple view on that. A very simple, basic view, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you know what I do.
Yeah.
And you know sort of the groups of people I'm with. When you get to a certain level, as a black or ethnic person, there's not many others in the room.
There's not at all.
Like, it's very rare that I stand in a room and I see,
Is that true? It's very true. Very true.
I find it really hard. I'm here and I'm like,
it's a numbers game once you get to a certain stage.
For minority, for real.
Yeah, so for me it's a bit like, now I might get cancelled. When I'm in a room, I am usually, Terry, I think we were one of two in a room of about 30.
Yeah.
So that's the first number bit. And then in certain career paths, is it male dominated, female dominated? Me and Terry are in female dominated fields.
Yeah.
Happy days. But then when you look around, if you are around those people like we are,
I'm gonna give you I'm gonna sum things up as well. Also, like when you're a black person and you're above certain black people, black people kind of below you are like, this guy's a coconut.
You know what? I think that opens up an entire.
That's different.
Which I find a really interesting one,
We say
right?
black women as well. Don't all particularly like it.
but when, sorry.
No,
No,
go on.
I'll
Sorry.
say, But when you're in that room and you're in that environment and you're wanting to maintain that level,
Yeah.
you naturally, me personally, default to the people I'm around. And if I don't have a wide breadth of people to be around, to choose from, select from.
I think your point about success and being an ethnic group, or basically, but we're not saying ethnic group, we're talking about being black, right, and moving up the social ladder. Exactly. I mean, we're editing ourselves.
No, we're black.
Let's be honest.
On the real, how many Latino men have you seen in a room?
Well, look,
I haven't seen any.
Well,
I don't mean that disrespectfully.
but in UK, you're not. The community isn't as large. You could say maybe Indian or black. But the point is, in my field and things that I do, I don't even expect. If I'm honest, I don't even expect to see someone else that looks like me. And if I do, and it's over, more than 2, 3, I'm
nodding. I'm like, what? I'm phoning people like, bruh.
I'm actually.
Come on,
I'm actually. But I'm taken back. So if I'm honest, I go, and that's just how it is. I don't get upset. I don't feel like I stand up. It's just a norm. Right, and I've dealt with it as a man because that's what we do as men.
That's what we do.
We deal with things, right? So that's just something I expect. But I think, going back to your point about because a lot of people meet their significant other either at university or higher education, or within a work environment.
Don't do it. Don't do work.
No, to be fair, the mother of my children, I met him at work.
It's what I mean. So if you are ascending and you find yourself there aren't as many, right? Then of course the odds are you're going to pick another. But there is that disparity between, black men that have either a white partner or one other partner, and black women. Black women do it too, but not to the same degree. Not to the same degree.
But do you know what else I find?
For the tape, we're over, yeah?
Yeah, we're over, so I think we're going to have
She hasn't come in yet.
But do you know what I also find though, which is quite interesting, is as a black man, when you are performing at high levels than expected, a lot of white men and white women expect you to be with a white woman. Like,
Really?
Yes,
that's
yeah,
true.
absolutely.
That's true.
Absolutely. Many of my peers, I'm in the surveying practice, and because I've achieved, a certain level of experience and ascension in my line of work, they assume that my significant other is an English white lady, and she's not.
And what you've said just triggered something, a memory that I had. Right? I remember, I'm not going to say at what point in my career, but it's fairly early in the career. I remember someone at the time, someone fairly senior in the company that I worked with, he kind of pulled me aside. He pulled me aside. He was like, look, you know what you should do? Right.
Get yourself a nice white woman.
Honestly, so I remember it to this day. He goes, you know what you should do? You should get a white woman. Right, listen. And you can have those nice brown babies. It's so cute.
Some people had no clue what happened.
But you know what? But again, I didn't take it. I wasn't offended, right? Because I was born and raised in the 80s. It takes a lot more than something to offend me. But I found it very interesting. I just thought it was very insightful for someone to, number one, feel so comfortable that they can, just be
who to choose for your life partner.
Exactly.
I've had it many a times, and even I've actually talked to black women who assumed that my significant other was white because of the way I speak to them or the way that I approach them, and again,
that's something that's always a myth to me. Sorry to cut you. Is I'll talk to people, and the amount of times people say to me, "You're really well spoken," and I think, why, why me?
Because the average. You know what I mean? But that's where it's coming from. But that's by it's what I look at as exceptionalism. Okay, often you'll find, and people don't mean to be there. They don't mean to be offensive, right?
No, they don't.
But it's the idea that you're exceptional. But then that means if I'm exceptional, then that means that there is a rule somewhere that states the norm is this. And the norm is substandard. The norm is criminal. The norm is all of these negative things. But you are an exception.
But let me counter that though, because you could argue that it's class-based and it's not necessarily racially based, because you do have classes in this very country that we care and love, where the average Caucasian person speaks terrible English, with no diction, with no grammar, control of the grammar, no control of past tenses. We was there, and all that kind of stuff, which completely incenses me. When people use
use your tenses right.
Correct grammar and correct tenses. So it's not that, and the fact that let's not forget that don't want to go into historically black Africans have interacted with Britain since before the Romans. It's historically documented. But in terms of when we are in this modern era of this wave of African immigration, whether it's from the Caribbean or from Africa, different countries, we have come here as immigrants, and many of us have come as working class immigrants, and we had to through education build ourselves and almost ascend into what I like to call the middle class and the upper classes, and very few of us have been able to punch that glass ceiling and get through. So you'll find that for a great majority of time, some of our counterparts will be speaking a multilingual English that is not necessarily considered the norm, considered to be, the accepted form of lingua franca. Yeah, it does take time. So some of us are now in a position where some of us are now in a position where we can actually have we have a good command of the language because we've educated ourselves and we've been exposed to work experiences that's enabled us to showcase our talent, and that is quite exceptional when you think about it. When you think about, from the other side, from the English experience, from the white English experience, they don't come across many people like us, or that have the opportunity to express themselves in a way that they've come in contact. So I can understand it, and I think when you're educated enough, you actually can understand and can pardon the ignorance, because it's not necessarily something that they see on a regular basis. We don't see it on a regular basis, for crying out loud. What barbershop do you know when the man don't speak properly?
It's true, and I was thinking that when I was in the barbershop, even yesterday,
I do feel like you have to turn it down and just kind of roll with it.
But the barbershop, especially a Caribbean barbershop, it's got such a mix of people. I don't think there's any point in society where really for us you can be with someone that is a business owner, a professional guy from the street. Everyone mixed together. But I know time has got away from us.
Okay. So last thoughts, guys. Wayne.
So it's a big one. I think for me personally, my personal experiences are I grew up in a very underprivileged area and from a single mother household, and with a lot of my aunts, from a similar situation. So I've had a lot of influences, and I remember when I was quite young, my nan used to say to me growing up, I felt like she was almost programming me. Nan, don't hate me for saying this, but she would say, "You're gonna end up with a white woman, Wayne. I know it. You're gonna end up with a white woman." But I've seen two sides of that scale, and I think I can only talk about my experiences and why I've grown up. But the black women that I've grown up around have been not what I find attractive. I find, a woman who is prepared to have faith in me and believe in me and support me and allow me to lead. And I found that when I've interacted with black women, they've wanted to quite often challenge that and say, no, this, that, I'll give you some quotes. I've dated a black woman before, and when I started on my journey, when I wanted to be a doctor, a black woman said to me straight up, "Why are you doing that long thing?" And I felt that, how can you not see? I know it's awful to say, but it looked me in my face, and I'm like, it's just crushing my dreams right now. And here I am now. If I'd listened to that person, I wouldn't have gone through everything and done everything I've done. And I feel like a different, skin color, white women would be more understand, see my vision, see my passion, and support that. And I think for me personally, I can only talk about what I've experienced. But I've seen that, and I think that comes from, it's another talk for another day, but I think that comes from the fact that there was a lack of that positive, strong, black or even white, whatever male figure that's prepared to lead. And I think some women have stepped into that realm of leading and unfortunately don't know when to say, I don't need to do that.
And I've seen your journey. Your journey's been powerful, man. Me and you've been brethren since 2000, bruv.
Back in the day,
Infotest days. Bruv. French.
Do you know what? For me, white is right. Black is right. Asian is white. Right. Everything's right. What I think what's important again is the dynamic within the relationship. But what was also interesting, and also to touch on your point, Wayne, is that because I came from an immigrant background, my mother was also pushing for this mixed race, multicultural relationship, because I think she experienced the level of racism that she experienced. She came in the West and in the 70s, where it was far more difficult for African immigrants to to positively integrate in any Western country, whether it was the UK, France, Italy, whatever it was. And there's a very famous Brazilian painting, which I forget who the painter was, where there's a black woman, a black grandmother thanking the heavens because her daughter married a white Brazilian guy. And the baby ended up to become racially ambiguous, and that's really what my mother was looking for. You know, and now I understand why, because she didn't want her son, and certainly her generation,
future generations,
to undergo the racism and and the prejudices that she actually experienced. Now, thank God, now times have changed. And you don't have to bleach your skin, so you can wear the Michael Jackson jacket, but you don't have to bleach your skin to fit in. But the most important thing for me isn't the color of a woman's skin, because I find all kind of women attractive.
100%.
But it's the quality and the substance of the individual. I just so happen to be with a black woman, but I would have easily married a white woman or Asian woman, because I'm ultimately uncomfortable with who I am. So that's what it comes down to, really.
That's a good point, man. Reese?
I think that we've scratched the tip of the iceberg with this conversation. I mean, there's so much more to kind of cover. It might be really, I'm sure that there will be people that are watching this and will be, triggered by certain things that have been said.
Super triggered.
And it might be good for, a future episode for someone that might want to come on and respond. And to these sort of things. Absolutely. To defend or to reinforce or whatever. So I think that would be very interesting to kind of get involved in. But ultimately, going back to the question about why you see, especially kind of black guys with white women or women from other cultures, ultimately there's been a number of factors that we've spoken about that have contributed to that. I think more than anything, it's not really actually about race or melanin or lack of melanin or anything like that. The question really is about culture.
Do you know what? I'm about to expand on that.
Culture. I think that's pretty key. And also, my background, being born and raised in the UK, in the West, my first crush was Kelly Kapowski from Saved by the Bell. Together,
everybody loves that girl.
She was bad.
But I never looked at her like a white girl. I just looked at her as the really cute girl that had qualities that I found attractive.
I think from my point of view, it's all about the culture thing, and so like you both have got to know each other's culture a bit more. So like if you're not really don't know what kind of like what African kind of culture, like for example, had blacks, I'm half black. Oh, sorry, half black.
That's me, Terry.
Wait.
Learn something new every
half
day.
Nigerian and half St. Vincent. And then like certain times, so you take like a white girl, like to have Eba and things, she's like, this is disgusting. That's just disrespectful to your culture. So they've got to have respect for your culture. And
but you'd be eating beggars and mash, all right, innit? You'd be winning.
Bangers and mash.
Standard. I won't say that.
I love a bangers and mash, mate.
I think you touched on it, but I think you've got to understand cultures, and I think I respect honesty. So if a chick says to me when they're eating like rice and peas and chicken or jerk chicken, this is nasty, I respect you. But are you going to cook it for me? Are you going to if you have that honest, open dialect, I think that's cool, but still respecting the culture is what's key.
But even within, black culture isn't a monoculture either.
It's true.
I'm of a Ghanaian background.
Exactly. Definitely.
Not all the Caribbean black teens that I was with enjoy jollof rice. Some of them was like, no, I'm not interested in that.
No, but it's more about the respect, like the way you say things and stuff like that. Yeah. So that's kind of.
I think, but there's a topic there in and of itself, which is when we use this broad term about black and white, and really that is not what we're talking about, okay? Because our experience here, for example, is with Black British, which is a very different experience to African American. which is a very different experience to, you know, Ethiopian.
Yeah, it's
But
very
we-
true.
But we
But
use
with the
this
blanket
very
black term.
broad term to say black people or black women
people.
or black
Yeah.
men.
It's different.
It's there's so many nuances in culture and politics and in history that all influence that, and I think you know another
Another
day.
Yeah,
another
absolutely.
day. And finally, Pascal.
As the brown guy here.
Yeah. Half black.
Half no. You know, when I think back, the act of the baseball bat was an act of violence, right? That wasn't an act of culture.
Yeah.
That wasn't something that's instilled or taught. And therefore, I think when you ask is white right, for me it's about the setting where the person's come from.
Yeah, 100%.
What was their home? What was their upbringing? So I agree about the culture thing. I experience that now, the differences of cultures and trying to understand that. But actually, the foundations of that person has to match. It doesn't have to be right. There's no such thing as right. Has to be compatible
With me.
with me as an individual. And therefore, the settings will enable them to be able to understand or learn a culture. Because you can't expect everyone to walk into a relationship and know,
boom.
this and this. But the willingness to want to has to be there, I think, personally.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. That's what I said. I mentioned the term about, is she going to cook it for me? I feel that's a willingness to show that I want to learn about your culture. I want to experience it. I might not love it, but because I love you or I want to be into you, I want to experience your culture and share that.
Okay. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you in our next podcast.
It's my job, innit?
Cancelled in the morning.